Well, it's my great pleasure to tee up our next session titled Disruption, the Catalyst for New Opportunities and Growth. More than 18 months now into a global pandemic, companies across the world are continuing to work through seismic shifts in their business. So, how do you turn these disruptions into real, tangible growth opportunities? And how have disruptions shaped the way companies understand and engage with their customers? And what role does unified customer data have in helping companies make better decisions amid unexpected changes? Well, if you're wrestling with any of these challenges, you're in luck. We're joined by a trio of panelists today here to share their unique perspectives and their firsthand experience on some of these questions and more. And so I'd like to welcome to Adweek's virtual stage now, Inri Mouchette, Head of Innovation at Campbell Soup Company, Ricardo Ortegon, Global Vice President of MarTech at Anheuser-Busch InBev, and Peggy Rowe, Global Officer, Customer Experience, Loyalty, and New Ventures with Marriott International. So Inri, Ricardo, Peggy, thank you so much for joining us today. I've got a host of questions to dig in with you on, but before we get started, I'd love just a quick 30, 60 seconds from each of you on about yourselves and your roles with your organization. Perhaps we can start first with you, Inri.
Hi, Inri Mouchette. I'm ecstatic to be here today. I am head of innovation for Campbell's across our meals and beverage division.
Great. Ricardo?
Hey, hi, good afternoon, everybody. Ricardo Ortegon, Global Vice President of Marketing Technology with Anheuser-Busch InBev. So I'm responsible for the selection, implementation, and operation of all the tech platforms we have around the marketing landscape.
And Peggy.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me here today. And hi, everyone. I'm the Global Officer of Customer Experience, Loyalty, and New Ventures at Marriott International. And my role is to oversee the end-to-end customer experience and bringing data and insights and analytics, all of those things to fuel our total customer experience.
Awesome. Well, we've got a great panel, and I have a lot of questions. So let's dive right in. Let's start here. So CPG companies have had great B2B revenue relationships with hotels pre-COVID. And with the great shutdown affecting the travel and the hospitality businesses, but now with the world, sort of gradually opening back up to both of these types of businesses, does this channel serve as a new opportunity for growth and in terms of reuniting with old friends and generating new business opportunities? Would love to hear your perspective. Ricardo, could you start for us?
Yes, thank you, Matt. So, during the pandemic, things sort of rearranged, at least in the world of beer. People went from having a beer while eating at a restaurant to having a beer while having a meal at home, or from going out to a bar with friends to hosting a small party at home. And as we all start to travel for business once again, I can envision that people will once again go to a hotel and have a celebration beer while closing a deal, or have a beer with a group of colleagues after visiting whatever, an affiliate in a different city and traveling. So during the pandemic, things rearranged, our business rebounded to where it was or higher, and these opportunities as they come back will be incremental.
Peggy, what are your thoughts?
I'm so glad to hear Ricardo say that. We're obviously anxiously awaiting all of our B2B partners and our travelers to come back and visit our hotels. But I would say that we are talking to our customers daily, particularly our corporate customers, about how travel habits are changing and how corporate business travel behaviors are changing. And so as people are working more from home, the needs are different, right? And so what we're seeing in the short term is a lot of people maybe working from home, but having to have these smaller meetings that require you to be in person. Innovation work, for example, it's very hard to do that via video. So we're seeing these small groups of executives starting to get together for strategy and innovation. And I think we'll see changes, right, in the reasons that people traveled versus the reasons they traveled before. But we're pretty optimistic about people wanting to travel and seeing them out traveling for business again.
I think I can certainly speak on behalf of my colleagues at Adweek, who share that pent up desire to get back out into the business travel and personal travel world. Can't wait to get out to see some of these beautiful Marriott properties for sure. Inri, we're gonna circle back with you in a moment, but I wanted to ask Peggy, while we have you, take us inside your organization and talk about how you've had to navigate these past 18 months in terms of the biggest disruption that faced your team and your company. Can you talk us through that?
Sure, I'll give you a little bit of a personal perspective too. So I spent the last 7 years in Hong Kong, and January of last year, I took on this new role to lead customer experience, loyalty, and new ventures. And it was pulling these areas of the company together to try to create new opportunities for the company, really new growth opportunities. And we were kind of at the height of our company's sort of performance, having just integrated Starwood, and my goal was to kind of create a little disruption and bring new business opportunities to life. Well, COVID certainly created a disruption for us. I mean, we ended up in single-digit occupancies over last year. We had to furlough 80% of our associates for the better part of the year. I mean, we've really we had to close, so many of our hotels around the world, and with borders closed, travel patterns have changed significantly. So we're now rebuilding our organization. At the same time, consumer behavior is changing. Less business, more leisure, right? Leisure options have exploded with people traveling to more homes and villas and outdoors. And so all of these things, more mobile, have created, actually, for someone like me, an innovator, the perfect amount of disruption, maybe a little more than I expected, but really given us a leap forward in terms of making the reason for change. So if anything, it set the stage for us to start to really just think differently about what our future looks like. And, as we build back, we're dealing with, on top of all of this, consumer change, even staffing challenges, particularly in the US, right? How do you deliver service with limited staffing, both from rebuilding, but also maybe less motivation to be working today than before? And so all of these things are going to change what the future of the operating model for, I think, hospitality will be in the future.
Sure, I think that's fair. Ricardo, same question to you. Biggest disruption that faced your team and how you've navigated it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the toughest thing that happened was the closure of some of the channels where we trade, namely restaurants and bars. Those were closed across many geographies for several months. In some countries, we even had a total alcohol bans at some periods over the past year and a half. So that definitely changed the way we operate. And we reacted to that, I think, in a very smart way. We decided to protect those channels. So all those restaurants and bars that were closed for months and months during the pandemic, we went and tried to support them. We created, in at least 10 countries, platforms where people could pre-order meals on those places. So, and giving the cash to those places to continue to survive through the pandemic. And we were matching those donations by loyal customers. And whenever those restaurants came back online and started operating, people could come and take that money they had given before in the form of meals. So restaurants and bars have always been there for us, are our loyal customers. And during that tough time for them, we decided to support them. And when it comes to our consumers, people like you and I who enjoy our products, also many of them were, and us and me and you, we were stuck at home for many months. And we tried to bring some of the things that our consumers were missing to their places in the form of live entertainment. People couldn't go to concerts anymore, but we started live streaming for free, some of those. For people who were missing exercising, we were helping with online training classes. So we try to help both our customers and our consumers, knowing that times would come back to what they used to be and that they would be back for us at that time.
And Inri, take us inside Campbell Soup.
Yeah, I mean, echo a lot of the personnel, challenges. And I think, from a food company perspective, it was very much a disruption, but also, quite frankly, an acceleration of a lot of macro trends that we were already keeping an eye out, things that we thought were going to happen, 2-3 years in the future that kind of just came screeching to like, no, we have to act now. Things like health and wellness really being front and center and being entrenched in what consumers were looking for, food as medicine accelerating, as well as just how and where people ate. So again, everyone being in the house, that took on a whole different realm and level of, I now need to rely on my home for every single meal because I can't go out, right? And so that created a whole, new level of options that we had to be poised to deliver in order to help make that transition as easy as possible. Different occasions, right? So lunch, usually you go to work and you eat out, right? And so that grew, tremendously. And I think, the good news was being poised to know that those things were on the horizon and being able to really capitalize on that in order to truly meet the consumer's needs, but then also on the retailer side, right? Like omni-channel, e-commerce, e-retail just took off, right? So how do we make sure that our products are where the consumer's looking for us to provide, that ease? So challenges, but amazing opportunity that has really allowed us to deepen that relationship with our consumers.
Well, that's a perfect segue from my next question, Inri. So I'm going to go off script and stay with you for this one. When you talk about those opportunities, how did your customer data help turn some of those challenges or those disruptions into opportunities? And I think I know the answer to this question, but is customer data becoming more or less important for your business?
Absolutely, yes. Right. So I think the fact that there's now a diverse set of increased diversity and set of the data and being able to really tap into, and a lot of times real time on e-commerce channels and dialing into what consumers are, asking for, we're able to understand more quickly, what is it that they're looking for, how we can really meet and satisfy their needs. What are the items that, are rising to the top to make sure that we properly allocate on the back end, which, has been a challenge for the entire industry, which is supply chain, right? How do we make sure we can produce, enough to keep up with the demand while still innovating, right? It's important for us to keep the news fresh, to pivot and provide the consumers with what they're asking for. And again, take advantage of some of those global trends that, we see take place. Consumers are wanting more exciting flavors. They want globally inspired items and be able to do that while also making sure that their staple items, their go-to, iconic products are there for them to be able to rely on.
Ricardo, how about you guys? How have you used customer data to turn disruptions into opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic has been obviously a very bad event, but if I can say, just like Inri mentioned, there have been some positives to that, and one of them is that we also accelerated into several years things that we expected to take longer, both on the B2B. We have countries where our platform that we used to visit restaurants, bars, and supermarkets to take orders, now it has been moving more than 80% digital. And similar in our consumer area, in our properties of home delivery, things have accelerated 3 to 5 times. Now to your question on how do we leverage data? I said this has been a blessing in the sense that now data, that consumer data that was difficult for us to get, given that now e-commerce and home delivery has become mainstream. We have way more data than we ever had before. So when it comes to personalization, but real personalization, not creating 2 or 3 variants, but creating 100 variants of a communication of an ad, that's now became mainstream. Things that used to be experiments are now part of the day-to-day operation.
And Peggy, your thoughts?
I wonder if Inri saw my increase in tomato soup and cream of chicken over the last year, because those are our staples at home. I think on the Marriott side, we, when the pandemic hit, we quickly aggregated all of our analytics and insights into a weekly meeting where all of our executives around the world got together and started to look to see, you know, exactly what was happening, what was opening, what was closing, what borders, and everything from outside data to inside data. To try to make business decisions. I mean, we were an industry that generally is fairly predictable, right? Week over week and year over year, you could predict occupancies. And all of a sudden, all of that went out the window. And so we had to become more reliant on one source of data and kind of bringing all of our processes together. But I would say that through this time, actually the most important data that we still use today, and we created a 2-week cadence for it, is the VOC data from our customers. And because things are changing so much, we have a panel of, 2,000 people around the world that we pulse. We can pulse every day, every week if we want, to see how they're feeling about travel, whether it's business travel or leisure travel, or how they're thinking about it, their confidence. And we are pivoting and making decisions market by market based on a lot of that VOC today, which is more leading data than it is what we've been using in the past, which is looking at the data after the fact. So I think that has really shifted over this year and a half.
Another good segue to the next question, Peggy. Some of these disruptions are certainly global, and you're all global brands, but some are more local or market by market. How do you sort through them? How do you deal with them differently? And is there maybe a specific story you can share or some learnings that you can share with our audience?
Yeah, this has been one of the, I think, most challenging things for our business, because we were such a global company. And if you think about our customer base, 70% being in the US, even all of our markets around the world really relied on outbound travelers from the US, inbound travelers, right, from other markets. And we weren't as focused on being a brand that sat in your backyard and got you to come right locally. And so all of a sudden, with borders closed, everybody traveled domestically, including in the US, right? It became road trips and drive market, and where can I go that's 2 hours away and I can get there by car. All of that fundamentally changed, like the demand patterns and what people were searching for. And so we had to make that shift. And I think in the US, it was a little bit easier for us to do that with, I guess, less restrictions, I would say. In other parts of the world, the Hong Kongs and Singapores, like those islands were just completely shut. And so all of a sudden you saw hotels marketing like weekend staycations and food and beverage, and all of a sudden trying to reach a local market that they didn't necessarily know. So we had to really help the markets around the world figure out how to target marketing to those local businesses. But now we're really focused on growing those domestic source markets for domestic travel. And hopefully when everything opens up again, and we know it will, that'll just strengthen our brands and our hotels even further.
Inri, I'd love your perspective on the same question.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for us, primarily being, US based, the data really came down to where, in the country, we're able to essentially maximize that distribution based on kind of where those trends were hitting. I would say overall, the tide just rose as everyone shifted, in home. So just making sure that we were and had the pulse on where those digital, trends really took us to what was trending on TikTok and all these great videos that translated actually into great ways for us to provide more customization from recipe standpoint and how we really delivered that communication.
That's great. So let's zoom back out here, and as we begin to emerge from this. I'd love to get your thoughts, and let's start with Ricardo. Are there organizational traits or capabilities that you now realize are essential for being able to manage and deal and get through, the types of disruptions that we've all dealt with over the last 18 months?
Yeah, Matt, we have been doing actually recently some introspection here within the team, and I could name three. One is the true embrace of data to be applied into personalization. Is something that we were doing. It was part of the agenda, but now it's clear that is one of the most important things we need to focus on, and it's been embraced everywhere. The second one is thinking what we call glocal. That is a combination of global and local. We could replicate many of the good practices because we are running on platforms that are almost the same across most of the markets. So as somebody was hitting on something positive, all the other countries could benefit from that, always respecting local specificities, but majority global. That is something that everybody appreciated. And the third one is as we start getting more and more consumer data, the importance of the data ethics, data compliance, the risk of cybersecurity has also been increasing, and it's a topic that people didn't speak much about, and now it's top of mind.
That's a pretty good list. Peggy, anything to add to that one?
I think I'll take a different spin on it, which is I think we've really been building that strength of resilience, right? And we've all been doing that probably personally and professionally as we've come through the last 18 months. And I think my team particularly, we spent the last quarter focusing on how do you build resilience actually, right? It's something that you think that people just have, but through this period, everyone has built a level of resilience, and, reminding people that that's about being glass half full, and making sure that things are still fun no matter what situation you're in, and being able to just laugh a lot is something we try to integrate into every day. It's keeping it real.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, time flies, and we are just about out of it. But I do want to end on a particular high note here, and I'd love to get 30 seconds from each of you on, as we do emerge from this pandemic, what are you most optimistic about, right? What have you learned that you'll take forward within this organization and other organizations in the future that'll make you a more effective marketer or leader? Let's start with Inri.
Yeah, I mean, I think really resonating back to the people side of it, right? I think when you are able to focus on the team, on the people, and approach it with care, you're able to accomplish anything, right? And so really coming together as one team, multi-discipline, cross-functional team, and appreciate each other's strengths, be real, right? That is true, Peggy, of when there's challenges, we just gotta go in, add it together. And so just that importance of making sure that team comes first and everything else will follow is just such an amazing lesson that I will absolutely carry with me forward.
Peggy?
I would echo that, Inri, and maybe I'll make it a little nod to my industry, but I'm quite optimistic about travel. So travel is a cyclical thing, and you can't really stop humans from wanting to connect with each other and discover new things. And so I think we're very optimistic about the future. I think the future projects even 26% growth over the next 3 years in travel spend. And so I can't wait to get back to that. I can't wait to see you guys in our hotels.
I'm very optimistic about our ability to change and to adapt. During the past year and a half, there are a lot of paradigms that have been broken, things that we thought couldn't be possible and are just happening, and we just got used to that. So I'm optimistic about all the other ones to come, all the things that today or in the recent past we thought as impossible or very difficult, that will become a reality very soon.
Well, we could do this for another half an hour, but we are unfortunately out of time. I want to thank each of you, Inri, Peggy, Ricardo, for being so generous with your time and with your perspective. It's been really fascinating discussion. I look forward to seeing each of you at another event, perhaps in a Marriott, drinking an Anheuser-Busch beverage with some Campbell's chunky soup very soon.